Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm here to talk about the originals, episode 507, titled God's Gonna Trouble the Water, which premiered Wednesday, June 6, 2018 on the CW. I'm recording 20 minutes after the episode has aired, so huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. I'm going to try to do this in 15 minutes, so starting the clock, and let's begin with what happened in this episode. So timeline-wise, I believe it's the day after the events of 506, or if not, then it's at least hours later. It depends on how long Hope has been unconscious for, or how long it takes for her to get back to where the house that she was being kept in, to her room back at the boarding school. Because I would also assume it would have to have been Freya to get there to grab her and come back, because I don't think Klaus would have risked the trip to get her there when being in close proximity with her. So anyways, storyline wise though, I picked up on 3 different storylines. First one being Haley's funeral, or funerals, I guess you can say. There's that. Second one being with Elijah and Antoinette being back in town. And then the third one being Greta's vampires retaliating against their own, or against a threat against their own. So with the first one, you get, with Haley's funeral, we find out about a bit of the Hollow's magic. We also get 2 versions of Haley's funeral. We get the street procession that's like a party. In this version, we get a projection version of Klaus being present. Then we get the Bayou version of her funeral, which is more like a true funeral, paying homage to who Haley was. And this one, you get the real Klaus being present for it, as well as all the characters coming together who can come together to give Haley a proper goodbye. Second storyline with Elijah and Antoinette coming to town to pay their respects to Greta and her followers, which leads to, unfortunately, Klaus attacking them to get them out of the city. This results in Klaus biting Antoinette, therefore she's inflicted with his cursed bite, and Elijah barters with Klaus for the cure in exchange for him getting his memory back. Klaus refuses because he wants to protect Elijah, because if he got his memory back and realized what he's done, it's going to destroy him. But Marcel, Vincent, and Freya take the deal so that they could get Elijah back. But throughout this whole thing, Antoinette fears that things will change between her and Elijah if he gets his memory back, while he assures her that nothing will. He will always love her, type of thing. Third storyline with Greta's vampires, we meet Emmett, who's kind of now the new leader and taking Greta's place. And when Elijah and Antoinette are taken out of town, Greta's vampires try to attack the city to get the couple back. But Hope fights back with magic, kills the vampires in the second van, and forces them to retreat, essentially, because, like, you interrupting your mom's funeral is just, like, a no-go for her. So there's that. Plus, Hope used her magic in public, like, without any, like, she didn't care, no qualms, whatever. So that caused a little bit of a panic. But anyways, last scene of the episode shows Elijah and Klaus are trapped together in an astral plane version of the compound, or the abattoir, and it seems like the magic of the Hollow seems to be reacting to the 2 of them in close proximity, because inside the abattoir itself, it's thundering, and you can see the flash of light that comes from the lightning that's about to descend, which is weird since the abattoir is still inside. So there's that. Character-wise, though, moving on, like I said, we meet Emmett, the new vampire, meant to be like the new spokesperson or leader for Greta's purist army. And it appears that they've assembled quite an army. Marcel calls them a cancer in the vampire community, so there's that. Declan's mentioned. He's not present for Haley's funeral because he was not told, as he's in Ireland at the moment, which he did mention in 506 he was going to go to after he visited his cousin's grave. So there's that. Keelan returns in this episode, and she explains how she got on a plane the moment she found out about Haley. So there's that. And in this episode, we did see Freya kind of hesitate whether she should call Keelan or not, because they are technically broken up. So it's like, what do you do? And she came to bring her support. So tidbit-wise, though, we get Josh blaming himself for Haley's death because of his part in Greta's escape. Vince tells him it's not his fault, so not to worry. We also find out the repercussions of what will happen the more times the Michelsons get together and the Hollow's magic reacts to it. It appears it's leading up to the death of all firstborns. So that's something there, which I'll talk about later. We also find out in this episode that Grandma Mary Dumas is dead at this point in the show. She must have died at some point within the last 7 years, as her name is carved into the same tree that Jackson's name was carved in, and where Klaus had carved Haley's name underneath her. So there's that. Also, we have Hope confessing to Klaus that she can't handle their broken family dynamic anymore. She can't handle him only being there half the time, or being a half parent, as she called it, especially now that she doesn't have Haley anymore. And it affects Klaus in a sense that Hope just talking about how she can't handle him, or she can't live like this anymore, and he sees her so broken and giving up. It hit him very hard. So there's that. But moving on to the most shocking moment of the episode, I would have to say the discovery that the buildup of the Hollow's magic being leading to the death of all firstborns, like all the blood, the water turning to blood, the snakes coming from the water, and hailstorms, blood rain, like all these different natural disaster or recurrences are actually steps that are leading up to the death of all firstborns, which I was very shocked by. It has me wondering whether or not if it's meant to be the death of all firstborns in New Orleans, or if it's really the death of all firstborns everywhere in the world, and like that would be more of a catastrophic thing, as opposed to it just being the New Orleans community. There's that, because essentially wherever the Michelsons go, it's affected wherever they are around the world when they're in close proximity. It's not just if they're in New Orleans together that the area is affected. I hope that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see if it's just New Orleans firstborns that are affected, or if it's all firstborns around the world that are at risk of this dark magic. So we do get confirmation that, of course, Freya and Hope are at risk, but then we also get that Ivy's at risk as well. So she has a personal stake in keeping the Michelsons apart at this point. So there's that. And that was a shocking thing, but I did like the fact that it is such a big scale type of an enemy. And I do like the fact that the Hollow is still an issue, because the way they dealt with it last season, it's like you didn't really deal with it. You kind of just put a little bit of a postponement on it, if you will. So there's that. But moving on to top 3 favorite moments, I will have to say my absolute favorite moment was probably one of the most heartbreaking moments for me, and it has to be when Klaus etches Haley's name into that tree underneath Jackson and Mary, and then his words to Haley, and just like how he says he misses her, and then how like he apologizes to he apologizes in a sense that what he couldn't do for her. But I think I got the quote right, but it says that I know that she needs me, and I see that now, but loving her brings her closer to death. I want her to live. I want her to grow up. I want her to love and be as strong and as beautiful of a woman as her mother. I don't know what to do. I really wish you were here to tell me, little wolf. And this is Klaus's words to Haley that really brought me to tears, because we haven't heard him call Haley little wolf in the longest time. It was just, and also to see him break down like that, not only does it show how far the two of them have come together, especially if you go back to season 1, how they were at odds with each other, and just and then to hear his hopes and dreams for Hope, and how he hopes for her to grow up and stuff, and how he wishes that he can still have Haley for guidance, and how he can't have that anymore. It's just, I found it very touching yet soul crushing, because in a sense he's painting a picture of something we can never see now. We can't see the two of them raising Hope together. They've never been able to raise Hope together, essentially, except for her as a baby. So it was like, I really miss Claylee, for sure. I really like that we got a reaction of Klaus for it. I mean, since we don't have it with Elijah at this point. But I love that Klaus grieved or reacted to Haley's death appropriately. He's lost without her guidance. He doesn't know what to do in regards to her being a parent. His anger towards Elijah is proper, as he blames Elijah for not only letting Haley down, but for preventing him from saving her. So it was just very intense that way as well. So there is that. And also, if you ever see Klaus coming to bring tears to his own eyes, that's a moment you gotta take note of. Also, I did like the little bit about Caroline through a letter offering her condolences and offering her support to Klaus and to the rest of the family. I really like that little nod in right there. So I'll tie it in with that. But moving on to my next favorite moment, it has to be between Klaus and Hope. More specifically during Haley's Bayou funeral. I love that Klaus decided to screw it all and just be by Hope's side in this moment. This is a moment they both needed. They needed to send off to a third of their family, essentially, their little makeshift family right there. And I love that he said that he needed to be there for her, and he promised her that he'll try to be more there for her, even though he can't physically be by her side. He's going to be more available to communicate for his help, letters, phone calls, anything like that. He's going to try to be there more for her than he's been in the last 7 years. So I really like that. I also like the fact that the I love yous between the two of them. I like that they're both determined to find a way to save their family, or Hope being determined to do so, and then Klaus having faith that if anyone could do it, she could do it. So I really like that. It was just a very fantastic moment between the father and daughter, and then also for Klaus to give Hope a hug, something that I don't think they've done in the last 7 years. This is the first time we get a grown version of Hope being able to hug Klaus. And it was both a moment of pure happiness because they get that moment, but also pure sadness at the fact that this is the first hug they've had in so many years. And it's coming at a time where they're grieving the loss of a loved one. And it was just, I just love the two of them together. They truly have very powerful scenes together. I always love scenes with Klaus and Hope, whether she was a baby, whether she was a little girl, now that she's a teenager. It's just the emotion between the two of them. It's very, very raw, I guess you could say. And it really brings out an emotional response from me. And because of all the emotions swirling around in this episode, the third favorite I had was the fact that we got Elijah going back into the white hallway of his mind and all the way leading up to the red doorway. Just that whole process of trying to get Elijah to get his memories back, and then like Marcel's words of telling him to let it all back in, to remember family, to remember Haley, to remember the promise of always and forever. And you get Elijah walking down the white hallway. You have some hesitance, of course, and then it's the red door, and then all the shouts of old words, old fights coming through the red door, and being reminded by that. I was getting emotional because I was prepared, yet not prepared to see an onslaught of Elijah's memories, to get that flashback flooding of all the old footage and stuff as he gets his memory back. And then, so I was ready. My eyes were tearing up. It's like I was ready to react to it and everything. And then to have him just like convulse from the pure rejection of that pain, essentially, from the looks of it. And then it looks like he didn't accept the new memories. He just flat out collapsed and went comatose for a moment. But I love the fact that we got to go back to that white hallway. The fact that we got to go back to the concept of the red door, which was first introduced in season 2, episode 5. White hallway came back last season, or first introduced last season. So I really like that they're bringing that back. I can't wait to go through those doors again to see the different memories of Elijah and see what could possibly trigger the connection back for him. So I'll leave it at that, because top 3 peeve moments. My only peeve was the fact that with the walk down Elijah's white hallway memory thing was the fact that I didn't get the flashbacks rushing in. Instead, I got him rejecting and refusing and then collapsing and being comatose. I mean, again, emotional buildup to the point that I'm getting teary-eyed waiting for them to fall in response to these flashbacks, and yet I get nothing. I get him collapsed and comatose without the memory overload. So it's like, really? You just built this up for me, and now I got no way to release it. It's like, okay, go back to the scenes with Klaus being emotional with Haley's grave or with Hope, and then I can pour my tears out that way. But anyways, moving on to what will I remember most when I look back on this episode, I gotta say the fact that we're giving a send-off to Haley. I truly cannot believe that she's dead. But I like that this episode did focus a majority of it on a proper send-off for her. So there's that. There's the timer. Moving on very quickly to random questions. First question being, who trapped Klaus and Elijah in the astral plane at the very end? That's going to be the focus of the next episode, but that's a valid question there. At one point, I want to think of maybe it was Ivy, but I don't know if she would actually do that, given that it's the day of... I don't think she'd risk having the Michelsons together, even if it is on an astral projection plane type of thing. So that's question there. Another question is, would the four factions remain united in order for them to band together and eradicate the purest vampires from the city? I hope so. It definitely seems like there are some vampires that they could still be loyal to Klaus and Marcel, and they're not part of the whole purist cult. So I guess we'll have to wait and see about that. I hope so. I hope it's the whole city taking on the purest vampires and sending them away, or not sending them away, killing them would be the best, essentially. So there's that. I also mentioned that Roman doesn't appear in this episode because he knows he's not welcome in the city after his part in Haley's death. So there's that said. Next question was, who's the new alpha of the Crescent Wolves now that Haley is gone? That might be a little premature of a question, but I'm left wondering who. I mean, Hope's a little too young to take the mantle, right? So, and she's not technically a wolf yet, so there's that. Another question, how long will Keelan stay in town for? A valid question. Does a return mean that they could be getting back together, or is it she just there to solely comfort Freya during the loss of her family member type thing? So there's that. Also, another question. If Klaus was able to have himself be projected to the street funeral and be there for Hope in that way without technically being there, why couldn't the same be done for Cole and Rebecca and have them pay their respects for Haley that way? I mean, I just found it a little odd that they couldn't do that, or at least they should have done that to be a part of the Bayou one at least. Because they must have heard that Haley's dead by now, right? I mean, it just felt wrong, especially when Hope kept saying, like, this is all wrong, no, like, people are missing type of thing. And then at the very end in the Bayou one, you do see Keelan, Josh, Marcel, Vincent, her father, and Freya, all there. It's just like, I wish that you got to see a projected version of Cole and Rebecca also being there too, in that moment, but... Sadly, we do not have that. I'm wondering why not, because Davina could have easily done the spell for Cole to send him over. Rebecca could have found a witch to do the same for her as well. So it's just, why the hell not? So there's that. I also forgot another favorite of mine was the fact that Vincent made a very valid comment. And when Marcel was telling him that we give Elijah his memory back and he stays away, and the Vince is like, well, if he could have stayed away from Klaus in the first place, then why the hell did we take his memories away? Valid question. I love it, and I just had to do a kudos for that before I continued on to predictions. And let's get to that. So based off the promo for 508, it looks like Klaus, Rebecca, and Cole find themselves trapped in Elijah's mental maze, arguing about their family vow and trying to figure out a way to get out. It also looks like Elijah stalls to open the red door as the rest of his family is in the white hallway with him. And it looks like Marcel is there too. So I'm super excited for the return of Cole and Rebecca, who we have not seen since 501. So I can't wait to see that, as well as to see all four Michelsons in a room together. Hopefully we get Freya in there too somehow. But I can't wait to see how that happens. But based off the synopsis for 508, it looks like as pressing matters rage on in New Orleans, the Michelson siblings find themselves forced to set aside their differences and work together to escape a chambre de chat. Also, for the looks of the promo, Elijah, since he is arguing with his three siblings about his family vow, he claims he's made a vow to someone else. It looks like Elijah doesn't have his memories at all. So it could be that for the remainder of the episode, it's him trying to fight against those memories and his family trying to get him to accept the situation, essentially. And then maybe it's at the end of the episode that he's going to finally accept opening the door. Because I don't think they're not going to leave the chambre de chat until he does that. Or until they find... I don't know who would have put them in there, but this is not the first time we've been in a chambre de chat. Freya put them in that between season 3 and season 4. We had Elijah, we had the 4 brothers in it in season 2 because of Finn. We had the Klaus and Elijah in it in season 3 because of Aurora and Tristan. So we're not newbies when it comes to chambre de chat. So I can't wait to see what this one will do. But we'll have to wait and see about that. But what do you guys think of the episode? What do you guys like about it? What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and predictions about what you think is going to happen next. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place, so go check that out. I am behind, I do know that, and I will catch up hopefully very soon. But everything will be posted there once it's all ready. Also, if you want to see everything I post online, check out my WordPress account. The link for that is down below. Everything I do online will be attached to that. It's a work in progress, but it's more organized over there, so do keep that in mind. Also, if you want a detailed recap of the episode, a play-by-play, if you will, check out my Livejournal entry link down below. It will be posted very soon, but essentially the entry is a jot noted version of the episode as I watch it for the first time, so you get my summarized quick notes about it. Quotes, comments, thoughts, all that as I watch the episode for the first time. It helps me keep things organized. It helps me refresh my memory when I go back to see what happened when. If it helps you, I'm glad to hear it. I've been doing it since season 2 of The Vampire Diaries. I'm going to continue it to the very end. So there is that. But otherwise, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back next week to see what I have to say about this Michelson reunion. Until then, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week. Bye for now.